Hi, everybody. Afternoon. My name's Hannah Bowl. I'm editor at the Subthread. And over the next half an hour, we're going to be talking about the agency-client relationship. And I've got three lovely panelists. But it's worth noting we're going to sort of ground this conversation in a piece of research, all be explained over time. But yeah, so let me just run down the line. So next to me, we have Claire Hollands, UK CEO of Saatchi and Saatchi. Olivia Blairman, Managing Director at UK for Coolr. And at the end, Emma Hillary, who is Head of Growth and Marketing at VerityRI Relationship Intelligence and is also a relationship consultant for agencies.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hello, thank you for having us.
Hello. So as I said, this is going to be about the agency-client relationship. And I think a nice place just to root this conversation is relating a little back to romantic relationships. Because, you know, there's parallels, there's similarities. So I wanted to ask, maybe Emma, you can go first. If we treated agency-client relationships like a romantic relationship, would most of them be considered stable but a little bit unhappy?
I think relationship volatility is probably the word, right? And I think that what we see every day, right, is agencies winning because of the work, but often then losing accounts because of the relationship. And I think like any marriage, right, nobody gets divorced because you stack the dishwasher wrong. You don't kind of end up with these tiny little things causing like catastrophic breakdowns. But it's over time that they all add up to something a bit relational. So what's basically what we see is you can get loads of complaints about timeliness, about operational detail, and it starts to undermine the trust. And then over time, that relationship basically fails. And we've seen a greater speed of relationships going south. And just for context, we survey about 250,000 clients a year. Every single agency's clients answer whether they would recommend working with that agency and what makes them feel that way. And then we code that into 91 themes so we can really precisely look at what drives agency success, what is the relationship strength that makes that partnership last. So there's some really brilliant trends coming out, which we'll share a bit about today. But yeah, I think the key thing volatility, and it is all about the relationship, not just the work, and I'm going to expand on that in a bit.
And from you guys, from the agency perspective, I'm sure you don't want to define them as unhappy, but what are you seeing from your side, Claire?
I think I'm probably going to advise too much about my marriage now, but I was sort of thinking about this question, I was going, I think it's actually about evolving together as well. I think so often the best relationships come with time and love and actually evolving what that partnership is. Because there's our world is changing so quickly, and often what you first contracted, have two kids and aging parents, and suddenly everything changes. And it's like, actually, that's the same with your client-agency relationship. So I think really taking time out and reevaluating where you are on that journey and what's working and what's not, for me, is sort of the secret sauce, I guess.
It is comparable to when you start out and then you're having children, and then you have to evolve with them.
Like the honeymoon phase can't go on forever.
Yeah. And lastly, Olivia.
I think my view is slightly different because the work that we do in social is so frequent. So the frequency that we're posting could be multiple times a day. So yes, the relationship side of things is super important, but I actually think I would put a lot of time into the actual work because that's what people are seeing every day. They're seeing what goes out on social feeds. So we spoke about this previously, and I probably will bang on about it quite a lot today. For me, the work is number one because that's what is going out on the feeds every day. You can go straight onto a brand social feed, see the work, see the performance. So that for me is the number one.
Well, it's interesting because actually in the research, the work didn't rank as high as you might imagine. The work ranked 30th out of 91 drivers of satisfaction, which feels to me a little bit counterintuitive to we're here in Cannes. It's all about the Festival of Creativity, very at odds. Why do you think that scored so low? Maybe I'll go to Claire.
I think it's a funny stat, isn't it? I guess creativity, when you're working with a creative agency, you could argue is the table stakes. That's sort of, you expect that bar, and when you go and partner with that agency, you know that that's what you're going off to do. So. And actually the best work comes from partnership and all those other things that get you there. I always think it's about creating the right conditions for success so that the work can be as good as it can be. So I don't think it's that the work isn't important, but I do think how you get to the work becomes disproportionately important.
What are the other things that get you there? in your view?
I mean, I think one of the things that we don't talk about enough is strategy, because I actually think that's where we add a huge amount of value, and the best strategy then leads to the best briefs, and that's actually what then drives the business forward. So I think it has to be ultimately about business growth, and is the work going to deliver against that agenda?
Well, it's a very different type of relationship we're talking about these days, because again, a lot of what I've been hearing in Cannes is we're moving from campaign delivery to like an always on, almost, you know, constant strategic consultancy type role. How does that playing out in agency relationships? I don't know who wants to.
I mean, one of the things I'm a big believer in is what I call the urgent versus the important. And I think that day-to-day bit is sort of always the urgent, you know, it's sort of what drives the wheel, so to speak. But I think it's really easy to let go of what is the important thing. You know, what is the 6-month plan, the 12-month time, what's actually going to shift the gear on things. So I think as the sort of C-suite role, the important thing is, yes, to keep the urgent running, but actually you've got to take the time out to have those big, important conversations, because it's actually what's going to drive that partnership forward.
Olivia, I'll bring you in on this, because it's very hard to do day-to-day delivery of social, right? While also having a finger on that long-term strategy, trying to innovate. Like, how do you balance just like constantly creating the work with that future-facing, strategic, harder part?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot today, just in preparation for this. And for us, it's all about having that strategy up front. So having a strategy that you develop for social, you build it out on a program, and then every quarter you reevaluate that based on the social performance, and having that strategy that clients are bought into, that they like, they love, means that we can then create reactive content off the back of it. So if something is trending on social, we know we've got a strategy that we can stick to, and we can roll something out. And I think that again feeds into the client relationships. They're bought into the strategy, they're bought into the partnership, which means that we can get creative out in time, because when it comes to social, you can't be late. You have to be timely, you have to be in keeping with the trend. You never want to be the last one to put something out.
Emma, just to bring you in, do you see any differences in the work that you do between the sort of social agencies and then the Saatchi and Saatchi's?
I mean, obviously, creative work and the driver of the product is huge, right? So I think that obviously gets talked about in a very different way. And what we have, that stat that you said about the 30 out of the 91, so that's about whether creative work and the output drives high ratings or not. A client can still rate a 6, say, I love the work, but it's been an absolute nightmare to get there. I don't feel that understood. You didn't listen that well, and actually, you know, it's littered with issues along the way, and it was just too hard, and then they don't stick around, right? So there is that thing where the work is not going to answer every single problem that you've got in that relationship, right? And that, I think, is the biggest thing we hear every day is, oh, it's okay, the campaign results are coming, they're going to save the day, they're going to fix this broken thing, and it's just not true. But I 100% agree with you, Olivia, like, you can't, it's the basics, right? If you're not doing that flawlessly, brilliantly, innovatively enough, then it doesn't matter how friendly you are, how supportive, how caring, all the other things, because you're not fundamentally delivering. So, but I think it's what we're seeing in terms of really driving the top levels of those 9s and 10s, that high satisfaction in clients' rating agencies. They're 3 times more likely to talk about how you work with them and the experience than they are the output. And so that's about understanding, that's about supportiveness, that's about care, right? So it's like any relationship. If you're not nurturing it and you're not kind of really, really understanding that person as an individual, then it's not going to last. And I think we really underestimate the power of understanding. And we do a lot of work with empathy mapping, right? So we will say to an agency, right, empathy map your key senior clients. Tell us what they feel, what they do. Are they feeling marginalized? Are they up for promotion? Are they pissed off at their boss? Like, how do they love working? What's important to them? What do they comment on? What do they do? It's just so important to get under the skin of that. And I think especially for junior talent coming through as well, there's a bit of keyboard worrying, kind of, I'm creating my relationship through Zoom calls and through text and through, keyboards. And actually that's not really what understanding a true client. So I think that for me is the difference. And I think the other thing is, how many times have we heard clients go, I want something that's more strategic, more innovative, I want you to be more efficient, more proactive. They're sort of lazy words that are like lobbed over a fence that you're supposed to interpret. And then you interpret them based on what you think. But you don't, some agencies then are not good at getting under the skin. Well, what does that actually mean for you? Like, what does efficiency mean? What does proactivity mean? So I think it's just the time taken to understand clients as individuals that we can't underestimate.
Can I just bring it, that's a great answer. And I just want to then ask you guys individually, like, how do you do that in your own businesses? How do you carve out time to be able to put in that side of things where it's a real deep understanding and the empathy side when you're also, you know, under the cloche?
I think for me it's a non-negotiable. I think if that goes, you're in trouble. So I sort of almost have it the other way around, which is how can I prioritize that and deprioritize other things, actually. Because I think if you're not having... I had an amazing email, actually, from a client this morning about some work that's very live, and she wrote some feedback and said, but I'm worried things are going to get lost in sort of the translation, and so I'd just love to chat. And it's like, yeah, and then we had a really good chat. And yes, the feedback was there and written down, but there was so much nuance to it, and we got to a really good place much quicker than had we just taken that email and run off. So,
as a journalist, I'm a big believer in just someone call me. Like you're back and forth over an email for a week, and then you're like, just call me, like, God's sake. Olivia?
I think this is a real responsibility of the agency. Like, you have to push your client to have these key meetings. We do QBRs, quarterly business reviews with our clients, and that for me is about reflecting on the quarter before, but planning everything that's coming up in the next quarter, and you have to protect that time. There are so many occasions where we want to push it or a client wants to push it, but without that meeting, we almost don't know what our next 6-month plan is, so protecting that at all cost would be my recommendation. Even if you have a campaign going live that week, you know, maybe you should have pushed it to the week after, but always make sure that you stick to those QBRs, make sure you're having those open conversation and forums, and that's also a great place to get the feedback directly from the client as well.
On sticking kind of with feedback, one of the things that I found really interesting when I read the research was this idea of challenging the client is a key driver of client satisfaction. And I was like, you know, do clients want to be told when they're wrong? How delicately can you do that, and how easy is it, do you feel, to push back or to say that they're wrong in aim of a healthy relationship?
I mean, I probably wouldn't pick up the phone and tell a client they're wrong.
You could start.
I think for me it's about hard truths. So I'm a big believer that you just have to tell the hard truths, and the quicker you can tell them, the better. Because actually, I think that's where you head off problems coming down the tracks. And when you don't deliver those hard truths early, actually you're just brewing a problem for later down the line. And I think when clients know you do that with them, I think you sort of shift from that like to respect. And I think that's always got to be where you're trying to move to. Obviously, I want to be liked, but I think I'm respected because I am quite honest with clients, and I'll call it early if we've got a problem.
Emma, how do you advise agencies to be able to feel a bit ballsy enough to challenge a client?
So I think it's probably two things here. The data answer really simply is if you're friendly, the average rating is 7 out of 10. If you challenge well, it's an average rating of 9.3. So friendly doesn't get you, and by the way, the global average rating for agencies is 8.03. So friendly is actually underneath. It's not where you want to be. So I think that your point on like or respect, I think is really vital. But you can't have a successful experience of challenging someone if you're not in a relationship, because it will come out as disobedient, you're not listening, you know, I don't feel heard, and we see that all the time. And then that's not a positive challenge, right? That is actually quite a toxic experience of challenge, because you hadn't built enough understanding, respect with a client to then have your voice heard. So again, comes back to relationship building as the foundation to be able to have a successful challenge. So that's sort of answer number one. And the other thing I think is just the reality of what does it take to be in a partnership? We don't have relationships with ourselves. You can't collaborate with yourself. Like, there's so much on the agency right now to fix everything in the relationship. But actually, that's just, it's not fair, and it shouldn't be that way, right? So for anyone sat here from a brand and a client, you've got a responsibility to be a great client, be a brilliant one, right? Take as much responsibility for that relationship as you're pushing on the agency. So I think that idea of kind of real mutual, how do you get to that space is so important. And there is this critical parent adapted child dynamic that's in the agency, right? So you know, the carousel of pitching, the kind of, I want it cheaper, I want it quicker, I want it to do it now. And, you know, it's just grinding down an agency to be automatically, when they've won the work, sometimes in that space. And it's not healthy. And you've got to, as an agency team, reset that pretty quickly if that dynamic is happening, because clients and critical parents push agencies into adapted children, and that is not a partnership. That's burnt out teams. That's saying yes to things you should say no to. That's not healthy challenge. So I think creating the conditions for success around partnership is about adult to adult behaviours, saying what you need, putting in your QBRs, sticking to them. We need X, Y, Z from you in order for us to do our best work. And that's not easy for account execs, for project managers, for people coming through. So I think modelling that from leadership down is really important. And sometimes actually, just the quick one on that, we sometimes see it the other way around, where senior leaders are an adapted child and the teams are freaking out that they don't want to be like that. So again, it can work both ways. It's not always the junior teams doing that.
You were going to step in.
Oh, you touched on the word, but I think for me there's a huge difference between listening and active listening. And I think actually that is, for me, the real crux of the best relationships, is when you're actually listening in such a way that you are then asking a different set of questions and getting to a more interesting place. So I think, somebody said to me, you know, got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, and I sort of try and remind people of that, because I think listening actually is at the real heart of it, in truth.
Yeah, what I would add is from this, I think it's about empowering teams to know that they are the experts, and the clients are bringing us on as the experts. So I try and empower all of our teams. We are a team of social experts, we're a team of influencer experts, and the brand or the client has brought us on for a reason. And that doesn't mean like saying no or saying that you're wrong to everything, but it's about sticking to our guns. Like, we know the platforms really well, we're in them all day. The teams are in and out of what's trending and what's happening. So we always have to stick to the fact that we are experts in our field, and you know, that doesn't mean that we're always going to be right, but I think it gives us a leg to stand on when we need to push back on something.
They've come to you for a reason, you know? Yeah. I wanted to sort of feel a little bit of, you know, Emma, you kind of touched on it in terms of like burnout and pressure, and there's a lot going on. And right now, you know, both agencies and brands are dealing with their own very headachy AI transformations. We've got big economic pressures. You know, agencies are expected to be cancelling and coaching brands through a really turbulent time, while also dealing with their own pretty headachy AI transformations and also navigating, you know, real budget pressures. So I want to understand how this is sort of adding an extra element of pressure to the agency-client dynamic. And I guess I wonder if you feel like there's sympathy on each side, or how each other is helping the other one out. I'm really keen to understand that part, because it feels like there's a mix of emotions happening right now.
I mean, I think it's fair to say we're all going on transitions. I think agencies are evolving very quickly. I think so many of our clients are also going through huge transition. And so I think creating what I'd say is sort of shared agendas around how do we win together, what are the priorities, where can we pilot stuff, because often trying to do full transformational change is quite difficult. So finding those places you can go and try something different together, I sort of think is what we're doing with a lot of our clients. I also sometimes think agencies don't talk enough about all the innovation and AI headway that we're making. It's one of those things where we're sort of our own worst enemies, and that we're doing a lot of this stuff, but we're probably not talking about it enough with our clients. So that's definitely something we're sort of putting on the agenda more.
Is there any reason you think that that's being missed out?
It's almost because we're just doing it. And so you forget that actually it is innovation, and it's probably quite different to what some of our competitive sets are doing. So I think it's just one of those things where it's easy for it because you're just doing it into the day-to-day, not to actually make it part of the agenda. So that's something we're definitely changing.
Olivia, you feel like you were going to follow up?
Yeah, all that I would add is like, it's something that you would probably talk about with a client in a pitch stage, right? But then when they're your partner, it's something that you're just doing in the background and they don't know about it. So I think bringing them along the journey, tell them how you're optimizing or using AI within the workplace. I think it's something you should almost like bed into your conversations, because you would have had that conversation or been questioned on it in a pitch stage, but it just hasn't come up elsewhere.
Is there anything you guys would like from your brand partners in order to support you guys through your own transformation, like to flip it back to you guys rather than it always being in service of them?
I think for me, it's as simple as understanding what they're doing. I think it works both ways, right? It would be good to know the tools that they're using, how they're using them, because we could maybe optimize the whole partnership if we brought something together. We're probably just not having those conversations enough.
And then Emma, kind of to bring you back in, like how are you sort of advising people during this time particularly? And you've been doing this for a long time, so is this different to what you've seen in previous times that there's been almost industry turbulence?
So we did a global future confidence study. So the Future Fit Index measures how confident clients are in the agency's ability to evolve to meet their future needs. And there's no surprises whatsoever that AI systems, tools and tech is obviously up there and is a core area of complaint from senior leaders. The bit you've got to watch out for is that 1 in 3 clients are rating their agency lower for future fit than they are for the satisfaction today. So AI is obviously a huge driver of that. It's a driver of efficiency that clients are demanding more of, but it's not coming at the expense of the human, right? So they talk about AI as much as they talk about the talent, the resourcing, the expertise to help us. And I think that's painfully obvious, right? But it's just important that it's not one without the other. But I think that watch out of, to Claire's point, is how well are you actually merchandising your story? Is it bespoke enough? Are you taking that client on a journey? Yeah, because there's a lot of just clients not understanding it, and they're, again, lobbing that ball over the fence going, I want some cost savings, because of AI, and that's coming out more and more in the feedback. So the education, the understanding, we run an extra question as well that says, what capabilities and offerings would you like to see from the agency in the future? And number 2 is about education trends and workshops to help them. So don't underestimate the power of, again, that sort of really helping clients, because they're not getting enough of what some agencies think they do really well. And the ones that are doing it get called out and really praised for that. So I think, yeah, the helping on the journey and the education is quite key.
Do you guys have anything specific in terms of like education, to Emma's point? Have you like productized that or just?
Yeah, I mean, we're sort of part of obviously Publicis Group, and so they've invested over the years a huge amount in data and AI. We've just bought LiveRamp, all those things. But I think it is about then how you get to tangible case studies that you can pick and lift and learn and take elsewhere. I think the thing I found really interesting about the future fit question was, and this is a slightly bigger provocation about our industry, is I would be fascinated to know how much of that perception gap is driven by the fact that I just think we are our own worst enemies as an industry about talking about the fact that our sort of industry is in crisis, so to speak. And I don't think it is in crisis. And I think we sometimes don't do the right job of talking about actually how, as sets of holdcos or independents, we are driving change. We've always been in flux. We've always been an industry that has adapted to change. And I think we don't tell that narrative enough. So I would be quite interested to understand how much of it is the agency that a client sees it literally in front of them versus how much of it is driven by a wider perception of what's going on our industry. And I'll stop my industry rant now, but I sort of think we need to be more positive about who we are and what we do.
And just to maybe add to that, like, satisfaction is rising, right? Clients are more happy with agencies than they've ever been. It peaked in COVID. It went down a bit because of all of the, I want it faster, cheaper, done now, chaos. And then it's gone back up again. And we shouldn't, we spend so much time unpicking all the shit that doesn't work, but actually learning from the bits that do. And as a coach who believes in positive psychology, I probably would say that. But it's so true. You can learn so much from what is actually working. And I think, to your point as well, Olivia, about the work, the effectiveness is up, right? That is more of a driver of satisfaction now. The understanding, strategic guidance, all of these things, when agencies are doing it well, they're driving higher and higher ratings than they've ever done. So it's just about forensically going through all your accounts and going, right, do we do it systematically, and are we showing up in the best possible way to your point, probably get more confidence back as well.
How often do you guys do that sort of forensic deep dive into your relationships? I know obviously it's quite common to do them at the beginning or if you're doing a pitch review, but how often do you, what's the kind of the cadence for sort of doing a forensic audit of your relationships? I don't know, Olivia.
Probably too much. We do it a lot. more on an internal level, but with our clients on a quarterly basis. And then we have those conversations, we unpick them internally. But I think it's one thing that it comes back to for me on social. I know I keep banging on about the work, but quite often our clients can just look on the feed, see how something's performing, see how we're doing, seeing how many followers we've got, seeing how many engagements we've got. So it quite often, you can have the best relationship and think that things are going really well, and then you look at the performance of the content and you know that that's something that you have to make a change. So we have these conversations about the work performance as much as we do about the how things are going with the client.
Yeah, you really can't hide that.
You can't hide anything.
I think there's real power in depth of relationships all the way through the team. I think that's something that often people think about, the top table relationship. I think there's two parts to that. One is I think you shouldn't get over-reliant on a senior individual. One of the things I enjoy doing is get different perspectives from different people in the business, because I think that's how you listen and learn. But then I think it's about those relationships right through the team, because actually if the team on the ground aren't happy, whether that's the agency side or the brand side, actually you've got a different set of problems. So I think investment at all levels, which is sort of what we've learned over the years through the Verity piece, is really, really important. So it's fine to have green at the top, but if you've got red at the bottom, you've got just as big a problem.
Yeah, you were also nodding along there.
Yeah, I think, sorry, to bring everything back to social, but we've seen a real increase in social budgets and how much brands and clients are spending on social. So our key clients quite often were the more junior, and that's kind of risen and risen and risen, and it's now getting the eyeballs often of the C-suite and brands. So we do really have to look at it from all levels within a client, because you might have the day-to-day people that are approving what's going out on social versus someone that's signing off the budget and is looking at what's going out directly on the feed.
Do juniors get sometimes more of the flack when the relationship goes a bit sour?
On our side or on the client side?
On your side?
Not necessarily. I think that they, we have social experts from all levels in the business, so they do often hold quite, all levels of stakeholder relationships. So not necessarily about the flack, but they are the ones that are in the work more than maybe other types of agencies.
I think I actually am probably going to get kicked off stage in a minute. I've lost my timekeeper, but she's over there. Oh, I didn't think that was working. Oh, no, that wasn't on. Don't worry. So it's the end of the panel. So I'm just going to do a classic panel closer. A piece of advice. Who knew that was going to happen? So going down the line, if you could give one piece of advice to either agencies or clients that would help help a partnership last longer, what would it be?
I can go. It's a really simple word. It's called feedback. Ask for it, listen to it, act on it. Don't capture all the data and get it all and then do nothing with it. Just get the feedback, ask them, and act on it.
My piece of advice, we did briefly speak about it before, but it's pick up the phone. Like, if something's not working, don't wait for a meeting. Don't wait for them to call you. It's probably more on the agency side. If something isn't working, it is so much easier to pick up the phone. I always think that words can often be translated wrong when they're written out. So if you call up and have a conversation, you often squash something before it comes something bigger.
I'm definitely second you on that. Everyone just call people.
Yeah.
And Claire?
I think it's probably, I'd say, take the time to invest in that relationship and let it grow.
Okay, amazing. Well, thank you guys so much. I'll let you get off and enjoy a nice glass of rosé because it's now the afternoon officially. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.